This is part 1 of Music Theory Fundamentals Lecture 5. In this lecture, we will learn about pentatonic scales and melodies. We'll start by learning how to construct a major pentatonic scale. Then we'll listen to some examples of major pentatonic melodies. We will study the differences between major pentatonic and minor pentatonic. And finally, we will learn how to write our own pentatonic melodies. Let's get started. This should be a familiar sight by now. It's an ascending C major scale, represented in the treble clef. Think back to our discussion of the key signature method in scales that have sharps in the key signature. We talked about one tendency tone. Do you remember what it was? I'll give you a hint. One of the major scale pitches we discussed has a strong tendency to lead in a certain direction. Now do you know what it is? If you said leading tone, you're correct. Although we discussed leading tones in terms of key signatures that have sharps, any major scale has a leading tone on the 7th scale degree. That B, which is circled in red, is our leading tone, which leads us to C. Now I will convert our note names to solfege syllables, which we use in sight singing. Then eliminate the leading tone, which is T. Listen to how it sounds. I'll play the scale ascending and descending. It certainly sounds different from the major scale pattern we recognize, but by most people's standards, it's not at all unpleasant or shocking. Next, we will make one more adjustment. We will eliminate another tendency tone that we haven't discussed yet. Any guesses which pitch that might be? I'll give you a hint. We hear it in the following progression in the penultimate, or second to last, chord. Aside from our leading tone, there is another tendency tone in that chord. See if you can recognize which tone it is. Listen carefully. This time I'll extend the duration of that tendency tone a little longer. When I finish, I'll give you one more visual hint. Now do you know which one it is? You see I've circled E, F as a pair in red and B, C as a pair in red. We already know that B is a leading tone that leads us up to C in the key of C major. But there's one other half step in this scale that holds some tension. By now, you're probably hearing the tension release of the fa-mi relationship. Similar to the way T leads up to do, fa likes to lead downward to mi. We've already eliminated our T leading tone. How will our scale sound if we also eliminate fa, our other tendency tone? Let's listen. This is a major pentatonic scale. We call it pentatonic because penta means 5 and tonic means tones. There are 5 pitches in a pentatonic scale: do, re, mi, sol, and la. I'm going to improvise a melody for you using only the pitches from a C major pentatonic scale: do, re, mi, sol, and la. As I play this improvised melody, I'd like you to consider, how does this pentatonic melody sound to you? I recently posed this question to a group of my friends. Fill in the blank. I think pentatonic melodies are... Of course, there were a lot of answers. Some of them were very similar to each other, and some of them were contrasting. Some of the words that were offered as answers to this question included pretty, simple, essential, diverse, very singable, practical, enchanting, nostalgic. Some answered haunting or even universal, while others used words like folksy. In the past, there's one description that my students have been hesitant to use, and that is something along the lines of non-Western or Asian. I think people are afraid that labeling it this way might be offensive, but the answer is it really isn't. A lot of folk music from countries in Asia is based on the pentatonic scale. Let's hear an example of a very famous Korean folk song. Sol, la, do, re, mi, do, la, sol, do, re, mi, do, la, sol, la, do. Sol, mi, mi, do, la, sol, do, re, mi, do, la, sol, la, do. As you can hear with the solfege syllables, the only pitches used in this melody are do, re, mi, sol, and la. Here we see a D major scale with solfege syllables underneath, and a D pentatonic scale beneath that. The D major scale sounds like this. When we remove our 2 tendency tones, T and Fa, our D pentatonic scale sounds like this. Pentatonic scales can be found in the folk music of countries from all over the world. America is no exception. Here's a spiritual that has a melody based on D major pentatonic. Mi, do, do, la, sol, do, mi, sol, la, sol, mi, sol, do, la, sol, do, re, mi, do, mi, sol, do, la, do, Here's a familiar sight. This is a G major scale. To make it G major pentatonic, we will eliminate T and Fa. Now that we've successfully converted this to a G major pentatonic scale, we are going to make one additional change. Remember our definition of tonic? We discussed this in the previous lecture when we learned how to construct a major scale. Remember, tonic is home. We can change where home is, and that can change the tonality of the scale or the key we're hearing, even though we're using the same pitches. We're going to change where home is. Instead of G being home, we are going to make our 6th scale degree, La, or in this case the pitch E, feel like home. We will start by eliminating the G, or Do, at the top of our scale, and continue by adding an E, or the solfege La, at the beginning. So our scale has the same pitches, but starts and ends on La instead of Do. Let's hear what that sounds like. I'll improvise a melody with the pitches of a G major pentatonic scale, but I'll start and end on an E, or La, making that E seem like home. As you heard, it uses the same pitches, but changes where home is. This is called an E minor pentatonic scale. It has the same pitches as G major pentatonic, but the tonal center is placed differently. For the next part of the lecture, I'd like to invite a friend of mine, Brandon Paine, to sing a well-known hymn tune that's based on E minor pentatonic.
Come ye sinners, poor and needy, weak and wounded, sick and sore. Jesus ready stands to save you, full of
would love to end this lecture with Brandon's beautiful performance of that hymn. We do have one final activity that we're going to do together. Let's write a 4-measure pentatonic song. Start with 4 measures of rhythmic material. I've decided to choose 4/4 time. So I'll fill the first measure with a half note and 2 quarter notes followed by a bar line. A quarter note, 2/8 and a half note, that's 4 more beats, followed by another bar line. 4 quarter notes, bar line, and then finally, dotted quarter, 1/8, half note. And I finish it up with a double bar line. This is 4 measures of rhythmic material that all fit into 4/4 or common time. Now we need to assign a melody. Remember, we're going to use notes from our pentatonic scale. We'll choose C major this time, which means Do, Re, Mi, Sol, and La will be C, D, E, G, and A. Let's hear what it sounds like when we assign those solfege pitches to the rhythm that we've written. So I'll start by writing in my time signature. I'll put Do on the first pitch, Do, Re on the next 2. In the second measure, Mi, Sol, Sol, Mi, followed by Do, La, Sol, Mi, and then in the final measure, Mi, Re, and Do. Remember, even in major pentatonic, Do is still home, so starting and ending on a C or Do is a good idea. Let's hear what this melody sounds like. Now it's your turn. Write an 8-measure pentatonic melody. Start with rhythm and then assign pitches from the pentatonic scale.